So you talked about the best interest of the child, and that's something that I have struggled with over the years, right? Because I've always felt like best interest of the child is something that is very subjective. I feel like it was something that I believe just, and this is from my years of researching back when I was going through it, originated from the tender years doctrine back when husbands were coming home from the World War II and, all of these things, right?
Interesting.
And I
I
feel
didn't know
like
that.
everybody has a different idea of what the best interest of the child is. Uh, Dive in a little bit into that about best interest of the child and talk to that point. As parents, we going through this, we have to look for what the courts would say is the best interest of the child. So let's, if you could, provide a working definition, if it's possible, and kind of talk a little bit to that.
If I had to, just based if on my experiences and based on, remarks from judges and rulings through the years, I would say that the best interest of the child is mostly based on or mostly determined by whether or not that thing or that someone or that circumstance negatively impacts that child's mental or physical well-being. That's the best way that I can explain it. If it threatens
Mhm.
that child's mental or physical well-being, then it's not in their best interest. So that's typically, and I agree with you 100%. It is extremely subjective. And that is why, before I go into that rabbit hole, that's why elections matter. Because subjectiveness can be, you can have similarities in how you observe or perceive something culturally, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
the subjective the subjectiveness, if that's a word, of it is actually mostly determined by who's sitting behind the bench.
Right. Right. And for us specifically, I've always said that a lot of times as fathers, when we go into these courtrooms, um, it's designed, it's not designed for us to win, right? These situations aren't designed for um fathers to win these types of cases because just, when you look at historically, there's always the burden of proof that relies on the father to prove that he is fit, right? The society tells us that if the mom is there, she is perfect for the child. And even if we're talking about 50-50 custody, like as a father, I always felt going into these situations that I had to go above and beyond just to prove that I was worthy of being in my child's life. I tell dads all the time in these conversations that I have with them that it's easier to go into a courtroom and say, I want to relinquish my responsibilities as a father than it is to go into a courtroom and say, I like to split custody of my child, right? It's a much easier process because when you go in there and you say that you want to take 50-50 custody, physical and legal custody, 50-50 down the middle, you get looked at differently. And there's a different, I don't think it's something that is said, but it's different, right?